to talk about something that's important to all of us, food. And this special hearing is focused on food security and food access for Angelenos. Obviously, looking at federal legislation that could impact this. What I really want to do is allow the speakers to guide this meeting. We'll start with the CLA.
Okay. John Wickham with the CLA. Just quickly for the record, item 1 is a resolution, Alarcon Coretz, relative to the city's position on initiatives that rebuild local and regional food infrastructure, support small and mid-sized producers, promote sustainable and urban agriculture, and increase access to healthy foods. As you know, your resolution expressed concerns with the Joint Select Committee on Deficit Reduction that the Congress created, which could have created some serious reductions in programs for food security. And so the resolution sought to support initiatives that rebuild local and food infrastructure and support small and mid-sized producers, et cetera. In doing some research on this, we found a bill, Senate Bill 1773, that speaks very specifically to food programs. For example, there's a chapter in this bill concerning nutrition, such as purchases of locally produced foods, farmers market nutrition programs, senior farmers market nutrition programs, assistance for community food projects, and nutrition education and obesity preservation grant programs. So we thought it would be helpful to include support of S 1773 along with the resolution. So we've prepared an amended resolution for you, and it's our recommendation that you adopt the amended resolution, the CLA report, to support that bill and efforts to support local food programs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have cards. We have a number of speakers who we expected to speak. I want to ask all of you if you could fill out speaker cards. I have more people listed than the number of cards in hand, so I'm assuming some of the people.
They just came.
Oh, they just came? Okay, great. Okay, with that, let me ask Paula Daniels from the Mayor's Office to come forward. Did you want somebody else to join you up here?
Well, thank you, Councilmember Alarcon. Yes, if I could have Valerie from Food and Water Watch and Frank Tamburello and Matt Sharp and come forward. Also, I think soon will be Alexa Delwich from our food.
Okay, and I'll dig out your cards, I guess.
I think they're in the process of moving it.
Okay.
Thank you for asking me to speak. Thank you for holding this hearing. It's a very important topic. You'll hear from a number of speakers today, especially those here, about various aspects of the Farm Bill and other issues that are pertinent to the consideration of this committee. You'll also hear from Alexa Delwich, who's the Food Policy Coordinator for the Food Policy Council, which I chair. But I wanted to speak briefly as a senior advisor to the Mayor on food policy to mention to you what's happening on a national level with other food policy advisors around the country relative to the Farm Bill. We met as a group in early November to talk about a number of issues that are pertinent to major cities around the country. And we did agree to send a communication to the Agricultural Committee regarding the Farm Bill. And the communication was signed on by Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, and Baltimore. And in that communication to Member Stabenow, who's the chair of the Agricultural Committee, we wrote that we, as a group representing major cities, agreed on certain principles that we wanted, that we hoped the committee would take into consideration as they consider the Farm Bill. So there were 4 main principles. One was promoting food security and maintaining funding levels for SNAP benefits.
Before you go there, Paula, could you give me a quick understanding of the Farm Bill and what the history of it is and how it.
You know, I'd be happy to. I think there are other people here who are also prepared to testify on that.
I'd like to get a quick understanding. I am a history teacher, but I would like to sort of put in perspective what the process is.
Yeah, how about do you mind if because I think there are other people who are prepared to talk about that, so I want to,
Absolutely.
we have a lot of experts in the room who've been
That's
working
the
with
first
it.
thing we should understand is
I think that's a great idea, so
the history of the
can
farm.
I
Yeah.
refer it to Matt Sharp?
Whoever you want.
All right, Valerie.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
The history of the Farm Bill goes back until the 1930s. Following the Great Depression, the government established sort of a way for farmers to maintain an access to the market during hard times. In the past 25 years, these provisions have been changed quite a bit to benefit larger corporations and not so much of the smaller farmers. So in this Farm Bill, or the recent 3 Farm Bills, certain issues have come up. The first one is supplemental nutrition program, so that's SNAP program. I'm not going to speak too much on that because we have a lot of other people speaking on that today. And then the other 2 are local and regional food systems, which other people will speak to as well. And then supports for the Gypsa program is something that's come up in the 2008 Farm Bill, and which is one thing that we'll be focusing on today. The Gypsa Rules, do you want me to go into that now? Or
No, actually, I just wanted to encapsulate.
So it comes up every 5 years in Congress for reauthorization.
Okay.
And there have been a lot of changes over the past 25 years, which is where a lot of the problems today
When is
arise
it?
from.
When does it? The last iteration terminate?
The last one was authorized in 2008, and it's up for reauthorization this coming 2012.
Okay.
And,
October 1.
and they almost passed a resolution within the super committee, but with the failure of the super committee, it's back to the drawing board pretty much with
Okay.
the Farm Bill.
Okay, great.
And just in terms of other political overview, my understanding is that Stabenow, who's the head of the Agriculture Committee, would like to submit a bill in January for consideration. I think most of us would support Stabenow's version of the bill. There's another effort on the part of the Republican members of the House to start from square one, and they're mostly criticizing the nutritional assistance benefits that many of us are here to support.
Okay.
The Farm Bill has about $300 billion in funds, and anywhere, depending on how the funds are allocated, anywhere from 2/3 to 80% of it is in nutritional assistance programs. So it's very important for large cities to weigh in on this, which is why many of us did.
How much was that?
On the nutritional assistance benefits, my understanding is anywhere from 2/3 to 80%.
Wow.
And Matt Sharp has the specific information on that.
He's a sharp guy.
Yeah, he's very sharp. So I think, in terms of order of speaking, perhaps we could go from Valerie to Matt to Frank, and then I'll tell you what we've done
However
in
you
terms
wanna
of
do
this
it.
group. All right, thank you. So, Valerie, I think you had a few more points
Okay,
to make.
so they'll speak more on the SNAP program. I would like to focus specifically on the Gypsa Rules, which were written in 2008, but have not been fully implemented. These are basically rules. Gypsa stands for the Grain Inspectors, Packers, and Stockyard Administration, which is the administration that would oversee the rules. They were originally written back in 1921. Then we waited almost 90 years to actually have them funded, but they were never completely funded. And these are rules that basically protect small and mid-sized farmers and ranchers from corporate abuses. So if a farmer speaks out against an abuse from a corporate or a processor, these are the rules that will protect them from any kind of backlash. These rules are really important because without their implementation, small and mid-sized farmers have been consistently put out of business, especially over the past 20 years. I do have some information here that I'll pass to you, but because these small and mid-sized farmers have gone out of business, larger factory farms have come up in their place. And factory farms in California, can I pass this over to you? Right there. As you'll see on that map, factory farms in California, which is the regions outlined in red, show like a large consolidation of factory farms in one area. These produce a lot of environmental effects, which directly affect us in the city as well. So you'll have several hundred to several thousand, for example, cattle on one ranch. There's no way for them to absorb the farm to absorb all of the waste produced, which is up to 5 times the amount of waste produced by the city of Los Angeles on a yearly basis. So they don't have enough a way to absorb all this, so that ends up running into the water streams, polluting our water systems, and then leaving us in California with a poor system. These farmers have been forced into these practices, like I said, because there's no way for them to regulate their prices. So they're being paid under the cost of production. And the implementation of the Gypsa Rules would reestablish many of those price floors and would reestablish a way for farmers to receive basically a minimum wage, which they're not getting right now. Another problem that we're facing in California in regards to these sort of farming techniques that we have is a problem with our dairy system. The same thing has happened in California over the past. Between 1997 and 2007, 52,000 dairy farms went out of business in the United States because the farmers aren't receiving basically a minimum wage. So corporations are allowed to go in and pay them under the cost of production, and then when they can't make their ends meet, then they end up selling out to these large. They have to take on more cattle to make up for their losses, or selling their farms to these larger businesses. And so that's producing all these environmental and health concerns that we're facing in California right now. We're also, as consumers, getting a poor quality product. And so when we see all of these things combined, we're seeing a much stronger need and a current demand for the Gypsa Rules to be implemented. In terms of dairy, there are two rules.
Sorry, could you slow down to the committee chairman's speed? I could absorb all of this a little better. But could you re-explain what the rules are?
The Gypsa Rules.
What the Gypsa Rules, what you're targeting in this bill?
So the Gypsa Rules were included in the 2008 Farm Bill. These are basic rules that protect cattle farmers and ranchers from corporate abuses. So you have a farm.
Yeah, go ahead.
That produces poultry or meat products of some kind, and then they don't process the product there. They have to sell it to somebody else to process it. The way the rules are now, these processors can pay the farmers under the cost of production. So when they're paid under the cost of production, they're forced to go into these larger farming techniques, which is producing.
So what you're asking for is to improve the Gypsa Rules?
No, they were written in the 2008 Farm Bill, but they were never fully funded. I'm sorry. They were never fully funded. And so while they're...
Fully funded, where does the money go?
The appropriations were never set aside for the rules.
To fill the gap between what the processors are paying and what would make the...
No, the Gypsa Rule, it's the administration that would overlook and make sure that these rules, that the corporate, that the processors don't abuse the smaller farmers. So they're basically called the Farmers and Ranchers Bill of Rights. And so what I'm trying to get at is there a minimum pay schedule that they must pay? I mean, included. How do they ensure they don't undercut them? It's complicated, but basically it's a more transparent process. So farmers and ranchers can ask, for example, what they're basing their prices on. It's also limiting. For example, right now you can have one representative for several different meat packers. And so when you have one representative representing 4 or 5 meat packers, you lose out on that competition. And so the farmers are forced to accept prices that they may not meet their needs or may not meet that cost of production. So these type of rules disallow that. They make that not able to happen. But since the administration hasn't been fully funded to overlook that process, we're still seeing these abuses occur. And so what we're asking for is... I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So what we're asking for is... So we've got the rules, we don't have the enforcement. Exactly. So we're asking for them to be fully enforced as written into the 2008 Farm Bill and agreed upon in 2008, but never fully funded. Okay, great. Got it. Okay. Any other questions on that for now? No, okay. I think the second thing that we are asking the City Council to look at are issues involved in the dairy business. There are 2 bills before Congress right now, in the process of Congress right now. One is called the Federal Milk Marketing Improvement Act. This establishes a price floor. This is sort of the same problem that we're seeing within the cattle and the farmer and rancher industry, is that processors can go in and pay any arbitrary price that they want to the dairy producers. And so dairy producers, again, are getting paid under the cost of production. We as consumers are still seeing a
What
high
was that,
cost.
I'm sorry, what was that thing called? Federal?
The Federal Milk Marketing Improvement Act,
Okay.
and this reestablishes a price floor. It has no cost to taxpayers. It just says, it asks the Secretary of Agriculture to set a minimum payment to dairy producers based on cost of production, et cetera. So this is in the House right now. In the Senate right now, and we are asking the City Council to support this bill because, again, it brings a lot of dairy producers back into the market. It reestablishes a level playing field. There's another bill in Congress as well called Foundation for the Future, and this eliminates price floors, or it says it allows processors to set any arbitrary price. And so one is positive and one is negative, and we are asking the City Council to support the Federal Milk Marketing Improvement Act. The Foundation for the Future, since it allows processors to pay any arbitrary price, it also sets up a pseudo-subsidy type program where if year after year farmers or dairy producers are losing money, then taxpayer money goes in to help keep those dairy farmers afloat. So we end up actually paying twice for the same product, and dairy producers aren't making a profit, they're barely surviving. So the first one, the Federal Milk Marketing Improvement Act, has no cost to the taxpayer, but it does reestablish a fair playing field for the market, or for the small producers.
Okay.
So those are the two things that Food and Water Watch is asking you to look at. Can I answer further questions on the dairy?
I'm sure you could, but I don't have any.
Okay.
So,
I think I just want to mention in terms of a
Yeah.
frame that Food and Water Watch has a very specific resolution that you're considering. There's a number of approaches that other cities have taken as well. Seattle has a set of Farm Bill principles that are different. They're general in nature. And then I'll explain to you later that the National Food Policy Advisors organized around a set of principles. The principles that Food and Water Watch is advancing are all supported. Different people are taking different components of the Farm Bill. So that's Valerie speaking specifically to components
Sure.
of them.
Okay.
And I think Matt Sharp was going to talk about nutritional programs.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Matt Sharp, California Food Policy Advocates. I'm a member of the Los Angeles Food Policy Council as well as Hunger Action in Los Angeles, among the number of stakeholders here today. And I wanted to share with you briefly about some elements of the nutrition title of the Farm Bill, its specific impacts and relevance on city residents, and to provide you a handful of recommendations that the committee might consider.
Okay.
The major problem that we're most attentive to is that 38% of the low-income residents here in the city are struggling with food insecurity. That reflects the serious consequences of the recession, compounded upon decades of unresolved poverty. And so the impact on families and households, of course, is the inability to afford nutritious, adequate food, and to some extent, for some households, periodic food shortages, otherwise known as hunger. Fortunately, there has been an impressive public response. Taxpayers have invested $80 billion in 2011 to try and close the nutrition and hunger gap for families across the nation. That's an extraordinary and important commitment. That is primarily through the food stamp program, started 50 years ago this year, which is run at a state level by the State Department of Social Services, which is why you are sponsoring legislation to improve it at a state level, administered here locally by the County of Los Angeles. We have representatives here today that will share with you about some of their initiatives. California families redeem about $6.5 billion worth of benefits every year. It has an extraordinary footprint on our economy, on our agriculture sector, and again, on trying to make it possible for households to afford nutritious, adequate food. So what are the atmospherics around the Farm Bill? What should we do about it? The primary consideration is that the program has grown dramatically in size in response to the recession, which is an important investment to try and keep families above water. It also has made it a budget target for those looking to scale back the scope of the federal government's role in solving problems. The committee that considered some recommendations for the super committee, the Agriculture Committee published a blueprint of ways to reduce the overall agriculture spending to meet targets for the super committee that were obviously not enacted in any fashion, but it presents an outline. In it, they did include $4 billion in reductions to the nutrition safety net. It's a mistake in a time of a recession and struggle. It doesn't help any of the families or households work better, get a better job, get a heads up on life. It's a mistake for them to consider that kind of reduction in this climate. We have a couple things we've learned from previous farm bills about things that worked and a couple things we might do different this coming time. In the last farm bill, there was a major policy adjustment made to allow families to keep some money in savings in their bank account and still apply for assistance, which has enabled the program to grow dramatically as folks have lost work. They've not been required to spend down every penny and to sell the house in order to ask for help. And I think that's an important policy change that reflects the capacity of Congress, even in a difficult partisan environment, to recognize an important change that would make a difference. That happened in the last Farm Bill. A couple of things that might make a difference in the next Farm Bill, 3 simple ones to begin with, and hopefully we'll hear numerous others from partners here today. One, we've got to close the senior gap. The 38% food insecurity number that I shared with you at the beginning comes from a larger study that we've just recently released with UCLA, showing that steadily since the beginning of the century, there's been a 25% increase in food insecurity and hunger among seniors. This program needs to better respond to that. Second, there is a sweeping series of changes happening nationally as part of implementing the Affordable Care Act. 50 million Americans will gain access to medical insurance that currently don't have it by 2014. The structure that's going to be put in place to accomplish that is a series of internet-based tools and systems to enable easy comparison of insurance plans. The application for nutrition insurance, in effect the state's CalFresh program, could be built into that process. And it's an exciting opportunity that both federal policymakers and state policymakers could seize to make food stamps a part of the application for health insurance. So that's the second major policy opportunity. And then the third one, of course, is a really complicated one, which is to figure out how to use this infusion of benefits to help improve people's nutrition and health. And there was a pilot project authorized in the last Farm Bill that proposed to provide some fruit and vegetable bonus dollars for participants. And that is under consideration by Senator Stabenow in the legislation that Senior Advisor Daniels described earlier, to be expanded as a way of strengthening the connection between healthy eating and food assistance benefits. So those are a couple of principles that ought to be captured in an updated Farm Bill, along with protecting it from reduced funding. And I'll just finish by offering 3 specific recommendations for this committee. One, amend the resolution that you are considering to specifically encourage Congress to strengthen the SNAP program. 2, engage our senators.
I'm sorry, what was the first one?
Sure. To strengthen the SNAP program.
Which one? Oh, okay.
To strengthen the SNAP program as part of the Farm Bill. In addition to increasing access to healthy foods, Congress members ought to hear the City of Los Angeles will benefit from a stronger SNAP program. Number 2, and here's where it gets interesting in the Government Relations Committee, engage our California senators. They have been forceful and effective advocates for California's production agriculture industry in a number of previous farm bills, and I am optimistic that they can be effective and powerful voices for California's low-income consumers as well, and will play a key role in shaping the outcome of this. The third recommendation in the intergovernmental affairs context is to build on the...
In the context of the resolution, you want us to do what?
Our U.S. senators are playing a key role on this. And I say that sort of in parentheses or in contrast with our House members that aren't playing as key role in terms of the Agriculture Committee relations. And I encourage all of you to reach out very specifically and directly to our U.S. senators, both invite them to be part of these conversations.
But relative to the resolution, are you suggesting some language to that effect?
No, the only suggestion for the specific resolution is my first one about amending it for SNAP. The other suggestions are for you in the capacity of this committee.
Okay.
So that's in context of the committee.
By the way, everybody, please turn your cell phones off.
Leading by example.
Good reminder. So second one is to reach out to our senators, who really will play the key role on behalf of California's agriculture industry and could bring along these consumer issues.
Sure.
The third one...
Yeah, normally when we have a resolution, we don't define the strategy in a resolution. The lobbying team would figure that out. So once the resolution is passed, maybe a letter to the lobbying team indicating what you recommend is strategic use of their time.
Yeah, that would
That
be
would
a
be
helpful.
helpful.
That'd be a helpful step. Third one, sort of related to that, but on a different tack or different track, is to build on the efforts that are underway really through different committee of yours, jobs and business development, around strengthening the community development department's work through family source centers, where there's an enormous amount of effort underway to increase CalFresh enrollment, and to continue trying to examine that process to strengthen the enrollment and ensure the number of families that are contacted are actually receiving benefits, and to figure out how to connect those systems. There's a technology component to that. There's a training component, a number of elements to that. Again, sort of under intergovernmental relations, particular to this motion. And then lastly, the piece that started when we did a hearing at Van Nuys City Hall in May about CalFresh Awareness Month is continuing to talk to the public. There are 1 million Los Angeles residents enrolled in the program now, and part of that is because the stigma has been reduced. Households that have lost work, are in a difficult situation, have been encouraged to apply. And as important voices in the public and the community, you all are playing a role in increasing acceptance of reaching out for public benefits.
I think there's just more poor people out there.
That's
I
also
don't-
an explanation.
I think people are confused by CalFresh. It's food stamps.
So the more we can talk about that in a variety of settings,
It is important for us to explain what CalFresh means. But I think the growth is simply because people are in dire straits, and even those who are stubbornly avoid governmental supplementation are forced to take it. Yeah. So. Anyway, that's just, it doesn't matter. The point is we need to do a better job of marketing CalFresh.
yeah. That was my last recommendation for the committee before us. And I turn the proverbial microphone back over to Commissioner Daniels. You like?
Okay, actually, so I think Frank
Let me
was
ask.
next, and then I have
I want to ask
few comments.
Sarah, because we've done a number of these things, and relative to the resolution, are we coming back with something else that's making a broader statement, or is there?
We can amend this committee report to go to full council that reflects the concerns of advocates today.
Well, I understand that, but so for example, we introduced motion to move CDD to expedite one EAP program, to one application with a multiplicity of program services. So the idea would be to incorporate in the resolution that we're going to.
Well, Councilman,
Separate.
the resolutions deal with our relationships with the state and federal government.
Exactly.
You would probably request a motion to direct the city departments to engage in those kinds of things. So we would have separate actions, one for the city departments and the roles that they're going to take, and one for our.
But is there any rule that we have to do it that way?
Well, it's putting information into resolutions that are theoretically going to Washington and Sacramento, and they're going to see something directing the community development department. It's not going to make any sense. So that's why we have a separate motion directing our city staff and take the extraneous stuff out so that it doesn't confuse our interaction with the other governmental agencies.
And I will say
That's why I asked the question.
our community development department is working on with the county to increase one EAP enrollment very aggressively, and Matt Sharp's been very helpful with that. That's it.
Right. See, yeah, some of the stuff we've done,
Yeah.
and it's part of the agenda, and actually CDD is doing a great job. And but that doesn't mean we can't do more. So keep throwing suggestions.
We're going to bring it back up to jobs and business development would be my specific suggestion on that, and discuss and see if another motion is needed or the current motion is adequate.
Well, I don't have to go there to make a motion. Okay, but okay. So, Frank, you next.
Yes.
Great.
So, council member, a lot of the points that we're going to make about the specifics of the resolution have already been talked about. So I'm going to make one general point about the whole reason we're having the resolution, and also to talk to you a little about some of the other issues that you're going to hear about today from some of the other speakers. The awareness of the Farm Bill and what it's about has increased vastly over the last, I would say, 5 years, due to the various aspects of the food movement, ranging from the anti-hunger community, sustainable and organic agriculture advocates, the healthy eating gurus, and a lot of these folks are centered in LA, and LA is really looked to as a leader in moving us toward a sufficient and healthy food system. And you can just look at LA Unified School District to see the actual practical changes that can come about as a result of passionate and committed community activism. But in spite of this increased interest, we narrowly dodged a bullet with the Deficit Reduction Committee. They almost snuck in what was referred to all over the country as the secret farm bill, with no public input and on a very hasty timeline. So we think it's very important for the city to take the lead in asking for things for its residents and set a precedent for all the other cities. I wasn't aware that some of the other ones have already done that. But the economic impact is one of the major reasons to do that. Matt talked about the economic footprint of the food stamp program, and for $5 spent in food stamp benefits, that generates $9 in economic activity. Mm-hmm. And some of the folks that you'll hear talk about are talking about some innovative local food infrastructure programs, which is a fancy way of saying things like farmers markets, community gardens, and community-supported agriculture, whereby we're growing more of our own food in the city, and we're also able to accept food stamp benefits to sell that food. So we're really revitalizing the local economy. So that was one broad point. And the other is just that a lot of the other issues you'll hear today are intergovernmental in nature, and you'll hear some personal testimony from people who use the CalFresh SNAP food stamp program, and some issues that we've tried to tackle on the state level in recent years, most particularly repealing the lifetime ban on people with drug felonies who are currently in California. You can't get food stamps if you have a drug felony, essentially. And that rule was ameliorated a little bit a couple of years ago, but it's come up, as you may remember from your time in the state legislature, repeatedly. California is also the only state where people getting SSI can't access CalFresh benefits. And we have, I think, in Southern California, about 750,000 SSI participants. And this applies to you even if you only get, say, $10 of SSI as a partial payment. So you'll hear some of that. We've tried, and the state has supported us to try to change that rule, but the federal government actually wouldn't allow California to modify the process it now uses. And you'll also hear a little bit about senior meal programs, which are offered through city venues and come from federal funding, which has to pass through the state. So these are issues that, while not directly connected to the Farm Bill, they're all major food security issues in the city right now that we wanted to raise the committee's awareness of. And whatever process you decide on, if they require separate resolutions, or as we work on these issues and they become connected to specific bills in the state, we just wanted the city council to be educated and aware of those issues because they impact a lot of people in Los Angeles.
And so I think Frank expressed it well, as did Matt and Valerie. I'm really pleased to be working with this group of people and the others that you'll be hearing from. And so again, I just wanted to mention what we had done as a city, along with other cities, to express our views on the Farm Bill. Because as you've heard, it's a very important piece of legislation. It's an economic driver for a lot of food policy. And while many folks aren't aware of thinking of it as being named a Farm Bill, it probably should be named a Food Bill, it really affects urban environments significantly, as you've heard. So the key principles that the 6 major cities signed on to in the Farm Bill is what I want to mention again. And it basically to not reduce certain things, but to support others. And I have a copy of if you'd like, I have a copy of the email with the specific information that I can provide to Sarah. But the 4 principles, one is to promote food security and to maintain funding levels for SNAP benefits and the Emergency Food Assistance Program. The second is to promote health through SNAP and other programs. So in other words, aligning the SNAP benefits with health priorities. And by that, we, as the 6 major cities, meant to expand programs that improve access to fruits and vegetables, such as sustainable funding source for healthy incentives for SNAP recipients so that they can buy fruits and vegetables at farmers markets and other places. We also had a specific recommendation to treat farmers markets similarly to storefront types of retail by providing funding to allow electronic benefit transfer transactions at farmers markets and at other non-traditional produce vendors. So in other words, recognizing that a lot of people get their food in places
Okay, do you
other
have,
than through stores.
do you have the specific language that you're
I
proposing?
do, and I can provide it to
Yeah,
Sarah.
I could get that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And then also to implement and evaluate pilot projects limiting unhealthy items that can be purchased with SNAP. New York actually attempted that, to have a pilot program to not have SNAP benefits be used for sugar sweetened beverages, for example. It didn't go through, but that was something that we're supporting. To try pilot programs like that. We also recommended that funding be preserved or increased for the programs that support fruit and vegetable supply and consumption.
But I was actually asking if you had specific language for the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is the communication that we submitted to the Agricultural Committee. So we don't have it as a resolution, but it was a communication to the Agricultural,
Okay.
the Senate Agriculture Committee.
Okay.
If you'd like to consider it as an amendment to the resolution, I can draft that.
Yeah,
submit it.
well, we don't have to hold it in committee, but normally we would get specific language. If somebody wanted to amend it, they give us, further be it resolved, whatever, than in the specific language, so.
Well, I was just sort of
For
conveying.
me to, I would have to
Yeah.
ask the CLA to translate this into that kind of language, and I don't know that it's prudent to send it directly to council without having that language before us.
Yeah, I'm mostly providing you this information so you can be aware of what those 6 cities agreed to as you consider the resolution that's before you.
Yeah,
Some
but
of the
resolution
points
is
of the
very vague, and frankly, if I were a legislative advocate, the city's lobbyist, I couldn't make heads or tails of this resolution. I'll read it to you, and you'll understand what I'm saying. It says, with the concurrence of the mayor, that by adoption of this resolution hereby includes federal legislative program, initiatives that rebuild local and regional food infrastructure, support small and mid-sized producers by ensuring, you can make arguments on both sides. Without the specific language, our lobbyists will not have a clear message as to what specifically we are supporting. And even though we have some of this, so some of this we could for example, oppose any cuts in supplemental nutrition, the SNAP program.
Mm-hmm.
I can insert that in, but some of these other recommendations, I'm not getting clear language, and it would be very helpful if Roger and I could have that, so that he could translate it.
It
You
is
called me
also,
Roger
yes.
again?
I'm happy to work with the CLA. It is
Mr.
also
Wickham, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who's Roger? I always call you Roger.
You do.
I've called you Roger for 2 years. Your name is John? Jeez.
We would be happy to work with different parties to draft
Roger
that specific
I'm sorry,
language.
Roger was my staffer in Sacramento. I apologize.
I will say it is also quite a moving target because we do expect the Stabenow bill to come forward.
Oh,
in
yeah,
January,
it doesn't
and
have,
that
it doesn't
could
have to
supported.
be so specific but think of it from the perspective of lobbyists. Give them what they need to have the direction as to exactly what,
Yeah.
but obviously, things are amended, things change, but they would
Actually-
nevertheless have the foundation.
Actually, Councilmember, we did submit something that had more specific language in it in the original submission of the resolution.
Uh-huh.
We have 2 versions of the original. We have one version that we submitted and then another that was drafted by your office.
Uh-huh.
And, thank you, thanks. And I believe that depending on what we had discussed in this meeting, a different resolution, the one that you have in front of you is a
Right.
placeholder, correct? So that we could amend this one.
Well, no, it's
to-
not a placeholder, it's an actual motion, but we can amend it as we go. It's
Okay.
just, it's very helpful if I have some of this stuff.
That, yeah, you do have an agenda there, and I can give you this one also. I have 2 different ones. One that was drafted by Food and Water Watch and Hunger Action LA, and then one that was amended from your office as well, and I'm happy to share those with you or get you a more formal version of those later today if you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
I will say also, Seattle adopted some Farm Bill principles, which they have turned into Seattle's, my understanding is their lobbying effort, and they're very general principles. There are 6 very general principles, such as sustainable agriculture. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah. Councilman, to your point, the city process has been to adopt very specific actions because, as you've pointed out, general policies or principles can be interpreted in lots of different ways and provides too much flexibility, leeway in going after something. And so the specific language that you're looking for, I think, would be particularly helpful in a revised resolution.
If that's the will of the committee, I would be very happy to help work with this language that I presented.
Some of this is very simple. The support implementation of Gypsa Rules. When you say support, I'm assuming you mean fund. Fund the implementation of Gypsa Rules. But then others, where it says, for example, support conservation programs. That's very difficult to interpret.
So we can continue to work on it. I know that most of the resolutions I've seen, including the one that we presented, has the general commitment of a strong commitment to the conservation title.
Yeah,
that was how we agreed
well,
that
no,
we would
it
cohere
goes
around it.
further on to say increased funding for 2012. That is more specific. The more specific we make it, the better. That's not to say we would oppose amendments and negotiate, but it does give them very clear understanding. So to support, for example, if you say, where's the original resolution? Even if you said support the SNAP program, if you didn't specify that you wanted to support either an increase in funding or a maintenance of funding, then the lobbyists could say, well, we did support SNAP, although it was 50% less. I mean, so we really need to be very clear on that. That's a bad example because we have some specific language on SNAP.
Mm-hmm.
But on some of the other things that I'm hearing, I don't have specific language in front of me. And that's
There may be two ways towards it. One is to consider that in January, a short number of weeks from now, there will actually be a specific Farm Bill draft document, which the city could do what it customarily does, which is actually react to. We like this section, we don't like that section. If there is a desire to move before then and communicate proactively to the relevant committees and members of Congress, there is some need to refine that language in order to give them precise direction.
Well, what would be the recommendation? I mean, I could go either way on this, but
My sense at this point is to cohere around a set of general recommendations at this point in time. And then when the Stabenow bill comes forward, to specifically support components of the Stabenow bill. And I have a list of the things in the Stabenow bill that
is that
we really agree with.
1773?
No.
It's not, there's not a number yet.
There isn't a number.
No. 1773 is a Brown bill, so that it's
Oh, Pengree's.
Sherrod Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also one to support. It's a local food act. That's one to support, but I think that wasn't.
So there's an
specifically in the-
additional bill that's coming up.
Right. So those would be my recommendations, to have a set of general, a resolution that gives general support for certain components along the lines of what you've heard today. And then in January, there's certain bills to specifically support and the components of it. And we have a list of those components that we.
So, Councilman, from a timing standpoint, council is going into recess for the last 2 weeks of the month. So the last council meeting is the 16th of December. Options for you.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah. So options for you with regard to this would be, one would be to direct the CLA to work with your staff and with the advocates here to listen to the testimony you receive and to come back to your committee at your first meeting in January with a detailed resolution. That way, at that point, we might have more
You
information
can
on
always amend the
Stabenow.
resolution later, right?
Yeah.
After the bill comes out.
Yeah, the other option would be for us to take the information now, take a revised resolution to council next week. It just depends on how urgent it is to get something on the record for our lobbyists.
Let me ask, the farm bill that was considered by the super committee, we have that language, right?
Right.
And what was the condition of that?
It's
farm?
awful.
It's awful.
That sums it up right there. It's $23 billion in cuts,
Well,
$4
what
billion
I'm,
in nutrition
what I'm
cuts.
suggesting is that in the whereases, you could explain all that. You know, we disagreed with, we could take a stand that we disagreed with the posture of the Farm Bill, whatever the number was, in super committee, and we could actually specify the things that we didn't like about it. That's just in the whereas provisions, and that gives the lobbyists a perspective on what things to consider. And then, if we can be as specific as possible, that would be great before the bill comes out. And then after the bill comes out, you have my commitment to reconsider it and then develop a more specific resolution, or amend this resolution into more specific language. So we could include some specific stuff, and we could have general language as well.
Okay, we'll happily work with Roger on that.
Yeah, although he's not employed by me anymore, but Mr. Wickham is always available. I did get your last name right?
Yes, you did.
I did get the Mr. right.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm 2 for
Yes.
3, so that's not bad. Okay, so if I'm saying this for the benefit of everybody, so that we understand this process. It's believe me, when the more specific we can get, the more it empowers our lobbyists when they go into the legislature. Okay, so where does that leave us?
Well, there are a number of other folks to testify today, and Valerie was very instrumental
Actually,
in Frank in
if
organizing.
you know what,
so-
if you guys could huddle
For a
and maybe
second?
pick out some of the things that you want us to be specific
And would
on.
you
I
like
think
us
it'd
to
be
come back?
valuable as well to hear from other members of the audience
Yeah.
first
No,
before that
we're going to
process.
do that, but you should also, I want to hone in on some of the specifics as much as possible today, because we are, I'm not going to be able to reconsider this before the break.
Okay.
And so we will not be able to give direction to Washington prior to the bill. So if we could send this on to council with some more specific direction, and then in the meantime, the my staff will work to come up with a more specific resolution that will be presented at the council.
So while the others testify, we'll work
Well,
something
I
out.
mean,
We'll come
anybody
back
who
you,
wants to
or-
participate can do the same thing. But, yeah,
All right.
that would be great.
Right, thank you for your direction.
I do have some stuff, maybe Sarah can go back and work with you too,
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
and show you what she's got, and then you can pick and choose.
And we have a number of terrific people who are here who have some very good points to make as well. So thank you for
Great,
listening.
thank you. By the way, Paula, I really do think it's wonderful that we do have a food policy person, because
Thank you, sir.
it was never more evident to me than when I went to the legislature how important our agricultural system is. And in California, where we're a major food basket for the country, it's critical that we protect it. And I'm actually more familiar with the farm areas than ever, because about 5 years ago, my wife bought a little farm. And, you know,
What does she grow?
and well, she doesn't grow much, but at least over there. But what I'm saying is, in traversing back and forth to the Visalia area, I've seen things that are obvious even to the non-farmer community. So, for example, we notice a dramatic increase on planting of corn. Unfortunately, it's not for food; it's for ethanol production. And those kinds of shifts in production could have dramatic impacts on the well-being of our ability to distribute food, but more importantly, even the well-being of our country in a lot of different senses. So
You're absolutely right. The Farm Bill has quite a bit of subsidy for ethanol production. And, while that increases and they cut SNAP benefits, it's something we need to talk about.
But my point is about the food policy position, and that it is absolutely essential that our kids stop thinking that food is produced by Ralph's, that we actually have to grow it, and they need to be connected to it and understand it. My father grew up on a farm in the San Fernando Valley, and I always had a sense of it, but we lost that sense a long time ago when we chewed up all our agricultural land in the city for the most part. So I just want to give everybody an orientation where I'm coming from, and I think this is very important.
Thank you, and
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for your support.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sam Chu?
That might be.
It may or may not be.
Public safety. At this moment, we're conducting a test of the PA system. This is only a test.
It works. Thank you. I think it works.
The Office of Public Safety. At this moment, we're conducting a test of the PA system. This is only a test. Thank you.
Wow. This is a long one. I'm getting ready to run, folks. I don't know about you.
Flashing, that's the best part.
I don't think the test has ever been this long.
No.
Am I wrong? It's a new guy. Yeah, tell him to turn it off now. Well, thank you. That worked.
They didn't listen to you.
We had to get up from the desk and walk to the area,
Press the button.
hope the key.
Compare the codes.
The regular guy,
Wow. Yay. All except for the flash.
Yeah, and we lost the CLA guy.
You're used
Roger.
you're used to paparazzi, so you'll be fine. We can, I think, move forward.
We lost Roger in the process.
Right. We, for a minute there, I was thinking it was agribusiness, broke our system or something. Okay, Sam.
Well, I assure you that I'm at the right committee. I know that we talked about banking for the last few weeks, but today is food. And I'm actually here on behalf of Mazon, a Jewish response to hunger. I currently direct the national advocacy and organizing campaign for Mazon, which is the largest Jewish domestic nonprofit that devotes to the singular issue of hunger and food insecurity. So I do have specific language, but I do want to highlight a few things that have been mentioned here in terms of amending the resolution to make it more specific. I actually met with Congresswoman Pengri, who has the House Resolution 3286, and then the companion Senate Bill 1773, which the CLA office had directed to, which I think is a very good fit in terms of what's going on. And so I would love to be able to bring back to Congresswoman Pengri that be part of the CLA recommendation, that we specifically support the two local companion local farm jobs and food bill that is currently in the process of in Congress. So those are I just mentioned the 1773 and 3286 in the House. The other is really, I think, as you know, the current resolution talks about the super committee, which is no longer functioning at the moment, which I think that part of maybe amending to what we believe in Mazone, which actually we work with all the partners that you just heard from. We actually fund many of them here in this room and across the country, is that protect the structural entitlement structure of the program, which is a really key part, because there have been, as you might have known and heard, that there was talks about changing the way that the program is structured in terms of food stamp into block grants, into that type of change. And I think that maybe the most general and specific ways in anticipation what's coming up is to say that we want to protect the entitlement structure, which allows about 400,000 of the Los Angeles County residents to actually access food stamp and SNAP. And that number actually has increased 66% in just Los Angeles County since the economic crisis started in 2008. So that particular structure in terms of entitlement structure and not being changed, and defending and protecting that as being one of the major part. The other thing that actually has happened here in the state that you might be aware of is that we had the Assembly Bill 6 that Fuentes had sponsored this last year, that actually went to the governors and was approved, which was to remove the fingerprinting and all the excessive administrative requirements to accessing. And that's been a great and important move. We're one of the last 3 states in the country that actually had that requirement. But I actually think that in my specific suggestion of the amendment, on mentioning that as being something that California has done and that we are doing, would have an impact, because I was just in New York City meeting with their city council and mayor's office. New York is the other state that actually still has fingerprinting requirements. I also was in Minnesota meeting with the state assembly there. They are actually now considering bills like drug testing and fingerprinting to add on back to the SNAP programs. So for city council here to take a lead in demonstrating that the state in AB 6 being passed have removed those excessive administrative requirements and fingerprinting would be demonstrating the kind of leadership that would be needed. And for example, for a national organization in Mazone, we can take it to the mayor in New York and the city council with, with Speaker Quinn and the governor to be able to say that this is something that needs to be done in New York now. Arizona is the only other state besides New York now that actually has that on the books. And so they're not in great company, as you can imagine.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many of you are there?
Just one, actually. That's the last time I checked.
You're a traveling man.
And so, so basically, basing on, I have some suggestions on here, also relating to the resolution. I think that there has actually already been mention about protecting and helping local food productions, which is included in 1773 and 3286. But also that we really need, and the language here specifically is to say that to support the adoption of the low-cost food plan for the SNAP benefit level. So SNAP is currently divided up in terms of level of benefits. It has really been proven in terms of data that the thrifty, whatever food plan that is on the bottom is actually not sufficient for a kind of healthy meal that people and families need. And so that on this resolution, there's a particular language where we'd like to encourage to adopt is to adopting the low-cost food plan for SNAP benefit level determination to ensure that the purchase of healthy local food is a realistic option for Angelenos that relies on CalFresh benefits. And so I actually did write out, if it's okay, I have a copy of it for you and for the CLA office on.
Actually, the closer the language is tied to dollars, the more it clarifies the issue. So to say that we support programs that increase access to healthy food,
yeah,
somebody might interpret that very differently than somebody else. And so you want to say,
yeah,
I think what you want to say is increase the allocation in that one category that you described.
So actually, this actually does that. So if you actually, I think the CLA office can look at specifically compared to a language, because this actually does essentially say increase, but by using the term that is actually included in the SNAP program currently. So it doesn't say the dollar amount because it actually varies, as you might be aware.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is asking them to essentially change the determination of the of where the plans distributes the money. Okay. So it does. So there's 3 specific things here that actually there's 6. 3 that talks about whereas in the language of the resolution, stating about the need for food stamp and SNAP here in Los Angeles, and then talking about the increase of the participation since the economic crisis of 66% in the county, and then talking about mentioning this assembly bill that we actually worked on as a model for other places that we think that need to either prevent those kind of measures from coming on the books or be able to remove them when they are, and then the specific resolution that you will see in the letter that I drafted. And now I'm off to maybe another country. But thank you again for your leadership and for actually Sarah, who's not here, for her leadership in this. And we look forward to hopefully, in addition to what they said, I think from the mayor's office and from our partners, we agree that we want to really make it so that we can continue to react to what's coming down. These 2 bills that I was part of talking about in Maine, where Congresswoman Pangrias and Senator Brown, they're really in anticipation of modifying and changing the actual farm bill. And so as a national organization, Mazone is committed to working not only here locally, but to work with all the congressional representatives across the country.
Great. Okay, this is. I think I need to get going, so I'm going to ask everybody. We have quite a few cards. Please try to hone in your comments on things that have not been said, and I mean, if you want to reiterate something, just refer to it and move on. My commitment is that my intention is to pass the resolution out of this committee. I want to get it to council before the break, but in between. I will pass it out in such a way that will give us opportunity to work on it with the CLA to craft as tight a resolution as possible before the break and before before we actually see a bill, and then we'll come back after a bill is introduced. And I'm a little unclear because you're talking about 1773 and then another bill that may be coming. So we'll try to ferret all that out before this goes to the council. And so whatever you aren't able to say in terms of time, please know that we'll be happy to take your comments in between this hearing and when we present this to the council. So please feel free to contact my staff, Sarah, to hone in on the specific language that you think is necessary for this bill. Ultimately, I'm going to have to sort of wing it in terms of what goes in and what doesn't go in. I'm going to have to try to get as much into this as is reasonable, but we're not going to be able to have another hearing on this. But rather than have another hearing, I want to get it out. And that's the important thing. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call up 3 people at a time, and we can you can speak in the order that I call you up. We're gonna set the timer at 1 minute. So please speak very quickly and get to your points. Meredith Hackelman, Kim O'Hara, Heather Fenney. Okay, Meredith.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
I'm Meredith Hackelman. I work with Lauren Bond in the Metabolic Studio, and I'm a member of the Urban Ag Working Group for the food policy here in Los Angeles. And I just wanted to support community urban agricultural programs here as job creators, since we are having such a recession. I work with youth, formerly incarcerated youth, the Homegirl Cafe, and a lot of projects like that. And I've seen huge benefits for kids and job creation as benefiting the food system here. So I just wanted to support. I have a lot of other things to say, but I'll just keep it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kim O'Hara with Department of Water and Power. DWP would like to recommend expanding the concept of sustainable agriculture mentioned in the resolution to explicitly include measures that would protect watersheds, promote environmental stewardship and conservation, and encourage the effective management of agricultural nutrient runoff to improve water quality and drinking water supplies. I have a whereas paragraph with this definition if you'd like.
Great.
And thank you for your consideration.
Sure, please get that to John.
Hi, my name is Heather Fenney, and I'm with an organization called Community Services Unlimited that does youth education and development work in South Central Los Angeles. We have a social enterprise called the Village Marketplace that is working to address the issues of access to healthy food and obesity in our community. What we do is we grow food at urban farms that we've created in the neighborhood. We also get produce directly from Southern California small farmers, and then we market that produce at affordable prices in locations that are convenient to community residents. We have 3 pop-up farm stands that we run at community centers and at health clinics. We are selling to corner stores that are converting into healthy food markets, and we have a produce bag program where people subscribe and get every week a bag of fresh produce. And so we started this program in 2007. We had 20 customers. Now we have 275 families that we serve each year, and a third of those shop with us every single week. We have been a recipient of a Farm Bill program called Community Food Projects, which funds local food system. Can I keep going?
Sure.
That funds local food system projects that are aimed at increasing access to healthy food and building markets for small farmers. As a result of the funding that we've received over the next 3 years, we are able to purchase more food and spend more money with small farmers. We're able to expand the number of stands we have, and we expect to serve 2,000 small local families with healthy, fresh, affordable local food.
Do you get support from the Farm Bill?
Yes, it's a program called Community Food Project.
Okay, so we want to make sure that we...
Yeah, we'd like to see
language
increased
better.
funding for that program and to ensure that the program stays mandatory funding and isn't moved to discretionary
Okay,
funding.
so that you'll provide us with that language.
I can email some specific language around that
Great,
for sure.
appreciate it.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Those 3 were really good, by the way. They were like 30 seconds, done. Lino Rios, I can't read this name. It's Jones Greenholt. Is it Jessica? Okay. And Dan Stearns. Don Stearns? Don or Dan Stearns? Please, Lino.
Good afternoon, Council Member Hackelman. My name is Lino Rios. I'm a Program Director with the CalFresh Nutrition Program, County of Los Angeles Department of Public Social Services. So our department is the one that administers the CalFresh program in Los Angeles County. I was invited by your office to give a 5-minute presentation on the CalFresh program. You've heard a lot about it with earlier speakers, so I won't go into too much detail. But just to give you some highlights of the program and what we're doing to promote the CalFresh program in Los Angeles County, there's recent reports that have stated that in Los Angeles, our participation rate is about 50%, give or take, different studies. So what we're doing in LA County, the Department of Public Social Services is going out and outreaching to all of our Angelinos, letting them know about the CalFresh program. We know that it has different names, food stamps, and then the federal name is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So we're trying to, not to confuse the folks in LA County. We do have a number of outreach events that we do. We have a mobile unit that we have deployed since last year that goes out to different community events to promote the program. We partner with Abigail Marcus Family Source Centers through 1E app. We also work with the United States Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition, where they have radio campaigns in LA County. You've probably heard them on the radio where they promotes the CalFresh program. And again, rebranding the name. Mm-hmm. We also have an online mechanism where the public can now apply 24/7 on the internet. There's a lot of barriers that preclude or prevent households from applying at one of our district offices. So the county has making program access a lot easier for families to apply, and online is one of them. We also have, we're partnering with the Mexican Consulate, where they have a program called Consulado Sobre Ruedas, where they go to different stores and they promote their programs, and we are there also promoting the program. We also partner with the United States Department, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. There's a lot of barrier. Another barrier that's out there is the public charge barrier, where individuals that are undocumented and they have U.S.-born children, they're reluctant to apply on behalf of their U.S.-born because they're waiting for immigration reform and they want to become naturalized or a lawful permanent resident. So they don't apply for benefits because of that fear that they have that if they do receive public benefits on behalf of their kids, that they might miss out on becoming a permanent resident or becoming naturalized. So those are some of the outreach events that we have, that we're doing currently right now in Los Angeles County. There's a lot more. For example, in May of this year, the Board of Supervisors proclaimed May as CalFresh Awareness Month, and your office, the city, also participated in that. Again, through Abigail Marquez and through Sarah, we had over 80 outreach events in the month of May, and we partner with about over 30 agencies. So DPS is promoting the program. We're trying to knock those barriers down, and educate the folks that, CalFresh is out there if you're eligible for the program.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A lot of information. Okay. Jessica.
It's Jessica. I apologize for my horrendous handwriting. Should have been a doctor.
See mine.
You know the work that we do. I work with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. For the record, my name is Jessica Jones-Greenholt. I'll cut out the paragraph that I'd written about how many people are in need. I know that you're aware of this. Our food volume has increased by 80% over the past 3 years, so obviously this is a definite need. Where the Farm Bill intersects with the programs we run, there are 3 programs that we run through the Farm Bill that are reauthorized by that legislation. It's TFAP, it's the Emergency Food Assistance Program, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program called CSFP, and SNAP, or CalFresh, here in California. TFAP is pantry food, soup kitchens, shelters, those food boxes that you think of, that's through the TFAP program, and then supplemented by donations that we receive. So if the funding is decreased for TFAP, we have severe issues on our end. One of the things that TFAP food does, it's through the USDA, and I can explain more in detail if you need it, but one of the things that this does, since it is free for us, it is also free for the organizations that work with us. So as they're feeling the financial pinch, they can still access this food for free. As that food decreases, there's less food that they can access. Can I continue?
Well, would it suffice to say that you want to continue,
maintain those funding,
increase or maintain the current funding levels for those 3 programs? Okay.
Got 2 things for SNAP, if I can. Maintaining the funding for CSFP, definitely. For SNAP, I think it's already been mentioned, but the option to, or the proposal to block grant the program would be devastating.
Okay.
We would have a severe caseload issue. And SNAP has
I think
also
we
been
included that in the resolution
okay,
already.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to read the language, sorry.
Okay. It's not very long. It's going to be very long. Okay.
The other one is that SNAP has been targeted to pay for other programs, and we would like to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Dan or Don here? Don Stearns? Okay. I thought he made a great presentation. Patricia Hernandez. I believe it's Luke Ippoliti. And Francesca De La Rosa. Patricia.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Patricia Hernandez. I live in the city of Pacoima. When I first applied for food stamps, it was after my son Fabian was born. And shortly after that, I was able to find a job. I kept receiving food stamps because my income wasn't enough to feed my son. It has been very challenging to take care of him. He is now 3, and he's been diagnosed with autism. And in his first 2 years, Fabian was always sick. And food stamps allowed me to buy him the Pedialyte that he needed to stay so he could keep him hydrated. I learned over time that what foods help him and which foods are not good for him. I have learned that healthy foods like vegetables keep him comfortable and make him less anxious. I don't feed him any junk food because it makes him worse. After being laid off from work, I started a job training program at MEN through GAIN. I know by experience what it's like to be without a job and have a hard time. So I like to help others. I am inspired to be a social worker by my experience. Without the help I received that man, I wouldn't be able to find out what I wanted to do, and wouldn't be able to take care of my son the way that he needs to be taken care of. So I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Luke?
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Luke Ippoliti. I'm here on behalf of the MEND Food Bank in Pacoima. I know that you're very familiar with the work that we do over there at MEND. I'm actually happy to inform you that we've recently started a children's gardening program. I only mention that because you said that comment about, kids thinking that food comes from Ralph's. So we're working on that. We are currently providing food, let's say, to 8,000 individuals every month, and we're sharing our surplus food with 30 other organizations that are collectively feeding another 15,000 people every month. So needless to say, if there were cuts in the food stamp program, we would not be able to make up the remainder in being able to provide food security to the community. It would just be too great. I don't necessarily have specific language for the resolution, but I did want to provide you some sort of grist for the food security argument based on recent surveying that we've done of our clients. This past year, when we conducted a client survey, we asked our food bank recipients what was the most desirable item for them to receive in their food boxes. More than milk, eggs, even meat, our clients overwhelmingly responded that they wanted fresh fruits and vegetables, which was a validation of our efforts over the past several years to dramatically increase the amount of produce that we were giving them. It's also an encouraging assertion that the population that we serve, as you know, low-income working families, possess a basic understanding of what types of foods can make an impact in terms of the health for themselves and their families, and that their primary obstacle isn't somehow understanding, but it's just having access to limited resources. We've been doing qualitative research recently, having conversations with families about their dietary habits, and we're finding optimistically that families are cooking virtually all of their meals. They're not eating fast food. We're finding that they have the understanding that fresh foods are infinitely more healthy for them than processed foods. And we're also seeing families that are willing to go way out of their way, spend a lot of time and effort to find sales on produce at various grocery stores and go out and take advantage of those sales. So this was the insight that I wanted to come here and share with you today, that these conditions are very conducive to putting resources into and not taking resources away. The conditions that I just described seem very conducive to moving families out of poverty, to breaking the cycle and not perpetuating it. So thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Yeah, I was past president of MEN, so I know a little bit about it.
You know a little bit. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Francesca?
Good afternoon. My name is Francesca. I'm with Works. We're a nonprofit affordable housing developer that serves low-income families and seniors. And the reason why I'm here today is to talk specifically about the growing hunger crisis within the senior community, and specifically to talk to you about working with you in the coming months about protecting the Congregate nutrition program. This is a program that in Los Angeles alone provides more than 3,500 senior meals at local dining centers and 3,200 meals to homebound seniors. And for many of our seniors in the buildings that we serve, this is oftentimes the only hot meal that they receive each day. Here's the problem. The Congregate meal programs are fully funded by the federal government. However, since the distribution of these funds are administered by the state, in previous years these funds have been withheld until a state budget has been passed. These budget stalemates and delays have put these meal programs at risk, and seniors are at greater risk of facing hunger as a result of this. So in the coming months, Works, Hunger Action LA, and other groups here in the audience would like to work with you in identifying ways in which we can get the state to be administering these funds in a timely manner, and ensuring that these programs are not threatened or have any temporary stoppages, so that we can ensure that meals are served every single day.
Is that rule coming from the feds?
No. It's federally funded, goes to the state, but if there's not a budget that's been approved, these funds are kind of held hostage. And so what we've been seeing in recent years is that local agencies and agencies like ourselves are held captive until we can see these funds come down here on a local level. And so we think that there are strategies that we can pursue with the state to make sure this doesn't happen again. And again, in the coming months, we'd like to have further conversations with you about this issue.
Yeah, we do have language proposed for that. We have identified language. That's not in the original resolution, but we support pass-through of funds without delay for. In this case, it's senior meal programs, but
sure. And this is
yeah.
If it's appropriate in the resolution, but also it may be something that we'd like to explore with you further.
Right. It does talk about state and federal.
Okay.
So we can incorporate that in, but if you want to work with Sarah on that language, that'll be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Okay, Sue Burton, Jerry Higgs, and Alexa. Yeah. Delwich? Okay, great. Okay, Susan?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Susan Burton. I'm the Executive Director of a New Way of Life Reentry Project. We provide housing for women who are exiting the criminal justice system. We've helped over 600 women over the last 13 years leave prison, come back to the community, and make a better life. A quarter of those women are not able to receive, I guess you call it CalFresh. I remember it being food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
When I left treatment, I was able to access food stamps and general relief, and it was instrumental in supporting me until I could find a job.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found a job, I was able to go back and say thank you for the food stamps, thank you for the money you supported me with, but I don't need it anymore. I have a job. I had a drug conviction, several of them, but when I found treatment, all my convictions were before 1996. So I was able to access. Everybody after 1996 cannot access food stamps, and we have worked on it over the years and amended it some. But I have an 8-month pregnant woman living in one of the houses that cannot get food stamps, cannot get cash aid. A mother and a daughter that cannot get food stamps for herself, cannot get school, cannot get the TANF fee. So I just ask that you consider in this resolution supporting ending the welfare ban at the state level, because California can opt out, but it hasn't.
Okay, thank you. And I would assume there's a disproportionate negative impact on minorities.
Minorities, yes.
And women.
And women.
Who have a
child.
No, who represent a greater proportion of our
criminal justice system.
Criminal justice system.
Yeah, there were some points I missed, and I went over my minute. But thank you for listening. Thank you for listening, and I do hope that you will be a part of this resolution to end that welfare ban supporting.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. Jerry.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jerry Higgs. I'm part of Hunger LA, Los Angeles, working to end hunger and promoting health and healthy eating in Los Angeles. I would like to contribute to today to discuss on food stamp issue by bringing up an issue which has a big impact on thousands of disabled or elderly individuals in the city. That is the fact in California, people who receive SSI, supplemental security incomes, are not allowed to get CalFresh food stamps benefits. This is an issue that has to be decided at the state and federal level. That's why we bring it up here at the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. SSI is a cash assistance program for people who are seniors or disabled. It only pays $830 a month once you have paid for your rent and medical bills, and very little is left over. And actually, myself, I live in a senior citizen building. I'm not a senior, but I'm disabled. I know some people that are in my building. They do have to go to food pantries. Some have to eat once a day. They eat what they can. They go to Meals on Wheels, but Meals on Wheels is actually they're doing good, but it's a small portion. You know, the thing is it's tough out there. And then when I originally got on SSI, it was $940. Without asking, without voting or anything like that, they just take it from us. And they just brought it down to $830. The gas hasn't went down, food hasn't went down, nothing has went down but our checks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We will incorporate that into the resolution. Thank you. Alexa.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Alexa Delwich, and I coordinate the Los Angeles Food Policy Council, which is a collaboration of 33 council members coordinating with over 120 public, private, nonprofit, and community-based organizations all around the purpose of rebuilding a strong regional food system for all of our residents and making sure that good food is available to all. There are over 150 food policy councils in the country, so we're really part of a bigger movement to develop a unified state, national, local agenda around good food. I'll just touch quickly on two priorities that our 7 different working groups are working on. One is that intersects with federal farming and food security policies would be around rebuilding local infrastructure for regional food systems, particularly through the development of a regional food hub to connect small and mid-sized farmers to all residents, and particularly connecting that infrastructure to LAUSD and other schools and other large institutions. So increased funding for local and regional food systems is one. And the second is expanding the reach of federal nutrition assistance programs and connecting those programs to farmers markets. Currently, only 16 out of 67 farmers markets in the city of Los Angeles accept EBT as a form of payment. And cities across the country and within California have made an effort to ensure that that farmers markets on public land accept EBT at their markets. San Francisco and Delano are 2 examples. And due to the size of our city, Los Angeles could really become a leader with that, with expanding that program to all of our farmers markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last 3 speakers. Holly Calhoun, Evan Clayman, and Robert Gottlieb. Holly?
Hi. My name is Holly Calhoun, and I'm from Sustainable Economic Enterprises of Los Angeles, or CLA, different CLA. And we operate 8 farmers markets in Los Angeles, all of which accept EBT. So I would, as far as the Farm Bill goes, we would like to support funding for incentives for healthy purchases with EBT, particularly at farmers markets. We currently have what we call a veggie voucher program where we've been able to really increase our EBT redemptions and help get healthy food to people that need it through a specialty crop block grant. So we'd like to see maintained or increased funding for specialty crop block grants. Additionally, I'd like to talk to you about expanding the access of EBT at farmers markets in Los Angeles. As Alexa just said, only about a quarter of the markets in Los Angeles accept EBT. EBT is a great way of leveraging federal dollars and stimulating our local economy. For every dollar in EBT that's spent, it generates about $1.79 in economic activity. So at CLA, we have 8 farmers markets. In 2010, we redeemed about $74,000 in EBT at those markets, stimulating $133 worth of economic activity. So if all 67 markets in the county, in the city were to accept EBT, that could make a really powerful economic impact, and it would at the same time put healthy food on the tables of Angelenos that really need it. So I'd like to encourage the council to take a leadership role and join cities like San Francisco and Delano in making sure that all of our farmers markets accept EBT, particularly those on public land.
Great, thank you. Okay, Evan?
Last one, huh?
No.
No?
Are you Robert?
I am.
Oh, where's Evan? Evan's not here?
Evan.
And you are the last one.
Yeah, I am the last one. My name's Robert Gottlieb. I'm a professor of urban and environmental policy at Occidental College. I'm direct the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute, and I'm also a member of the Los Angeles Food Policy Council. We have a number of programs on the ground doing some of the work that you're hearing about that needs support. 2 of them have already been discussed, the Regional Food Hub and increasing capacity to at farmers markets for EBT for food stamps and WIC WIC clients. There actually are a number of things going on right now in LA in both those areas. Holly mentioned some of the work that CLA is doing, but the outreach to people who could benefit from those programs is enormous, both from the farm side and from the institution side for the Regional Food Hub, and then in terms of people who would use farmers markets as well as the markets themselves on the EBT. One other additional point I wanted to raise, probably our signature program, which started in LA, which is in the Farm Bill currently and needs to be supported, is Farm to School. It's now a program that just got awarded a major program through the Obama administration, the Community Transformation Grant. It's now in 50 states. It was piloted here in Los Angeles. We now have a parallel initiative in preschools called Farm to Preschool. So LA has really been in the leadership of making a program like that happen, and there is specific language in the Farm Bill that needs to be reinforced in terms of supporting those programs.
Professor, you might be able to answer a question for me, and if not, maybe Paula Daniels can answer that question. Obviously, the cost of living in Los Angeles is much higher than other areas. Is cost of living factored into the distribution of funds in the Farm Bill? Somebody said yeah.
Well,
it is? Okay.
In programs like Farm to School or Regional Food Hub, that as opposed to some of the benefit programs, that wouldn't apply. In the benefit programs it does.
So that 80% of the Farm Bill that functions as an income transfer in the form of nutrition benefits is calculated on a number of factors, one of which is shelter costs, resulting in Californians receiving a slightly higher average benefit per household than those in other states.
Now, is SSI distributed the same way?
SSI is an entirely different set of formula that establishes benefit levels because there's a state contribution in both California.
I was just the one provision related to people who are recipients of SSI not being able to receive other food benefits. Is that tied to the the disparity in cost of living?
No, that was a provision enacted in the Farm Bill as part of the Food Stamp Act in the late 1970s.
Okay, no, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, should we incorporate language that perhaps SSI people in certain regions where cost of living is high be allowed to apply for the program? Anyway, it's a concept. I'll throw it out, and we'll have further discussions about it. But I didn't hear anybody talk about the difference in cost of living in Los Angeles and some other regions, obviously, but Los Angeles is very high.
Policymakers responded to that in the 2008 Farm Bill in several ways. One, acknowledging the resources that some people have saved that I described in my earlier remarks. That was changed in the law in order to allow households that might have accumulated something in the bank and go unemployed to apply for benefits.
Right.
That disproportionately helped people in California.
Okay.
The second change was to index the minimum benefit to increase slightly, and that went up as well as part of the Recovery Act from $10 a month to $16 a month, again, benefiting folks in California more because of the way
But if
the
you're an
housing-
SSI recipient, you're still excluded.
Yeah, they're two unrelated policy problems.
Well, except that you can't get food benefits if you're on SSI.
Right. That's unrelated to the cost of living or the shelter. That's a separate issue related to how California's SSI program is set up and the federal law.
Powerful issue.
Well, I'd like to understand that. I'd like to incorporate something if it's a consensus that it should be. But okay, thank you very much. What the action of the direction of the chair of the committee is that we are going. I didn't hear anything I disagreed with, so we're going to incorporate as much of that, if not all of it, into one resolution that will recognize that there will be a farm bill introduced, and whatever farm bills are introduced, we would like to incorporate these aspects into the bill. So when is the last opportunity to go to council before the break?
I believe it's the 16th of December, so we have a week and a half.
Do you, is that an impossible task? This is a lot of information.
No. The CLA will draft that revised resolution for you, and we'll make sure that the clerk has a copy of that. It's on file before it goes to council on 16th.
So we want to thank John Roger Wickham for his commitment, and of course Sarah, who will work with him on this issue. And please, and also Paula from the mayor's office. So if we could, please feel free to send us your emails on specific language. We would greatly appreciate it. And also, don't be surprised if Sarah gives you a call based on the people who spoke to clarify any issues that we may have missed. When it does come out, please review it. If you see something that you think should be modified, let us know as soon as possible. And if necessary, we'll amend it on the floor. So with that, I want to thank you all for participating. And I'm sure we'll be able to get something out. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.